When Daniel Harper first saw the garage, he almost laughed. The building stood at the edge of an old industrial block, half hidden behind rusted fencing and wild overgrown weeds. Its metal roof sagged in places, the paint had peeled off years ago, and one of the shutters hung crooked as if it had given up trying to stay attached. Rainwater had stained the walls dark brown, and the smell of oil and damp concrete lingered in the cold air. "This is what you're buying?" the real estate agent asked, trying not to sound judgmental. Daniel stared at the property papers in his hand. Price, $1,000. To most people, it looked like a joke. Even the seller, a wealthy CEO named Victor Langston, had mocked him during the sale. "You seem like a decent guy," Victor had said while signing the documents. "So I'll give you honest advice. Don't waste another dollar on this place. It's junk." Daniel still remembered the faint smile on Victor's face. It wasn't cruel exactly, but it carried the confidence of someone who had spent too long being right about everything. Maybe Victor had a point. Daniel had only $1,130 left in savings after losing his job at an auto repair shop 3 months earlier. His landlord had already warned him about late rent. Friends told him to stop chasing impossible ideas and look for stable work. But Daniel couldn't stop thinking about that garage. He didn't see broken walls or rusted metal. He saw space. Potential. A second chance. As a child, he used to help his father repair engines in a tiny backyard shed. His father always said, "Most people throw things away because they only see what something is. Winners look at what something can become." That sentence stayed with him. Standing in front of the garage now, with freezing wind cutting through his jacket, Daniel placed his hand on the old metal shutter. Cold, rough, forgotten. Yet something inside him felt strangely certain. Everyone else saw a dead property. Daniel saw the beginning of something alive. He took a slow breath, pulled a small key from his pocket, and unlocked the garage for the first time. The door screeched open. Dust swirled in the dim light, and with that sound, his future quietly began. The first week was brutal. Daniel had expected the garage to need repairs, but he hadn't fully understood just how bad it was until he started working inside it. The electricity barely functioned. Half the wiring looked unsafe. Rainwater seeped through small holes in the roof and collected in shallow puddles across the cracked concrete floor. Every corner held years of forgotten junk, rusted tools, broken shelves, tires hardened by age, and metal scraps coated in grease and dust. Still, he showed up every morning before sunrise. He couldn't afford contractors, so everything depended on his own hands. He began by clearing the junk. For 3 straight days, he hauled scrap outside, sorting what could be sold and what had to be thrown away. His back ached so badly at night that even turning in bed hurt. Some evenings, he skipped dinner just to save money for supplies. By the second week, the comments started. A man from the nearby shop leaned against his door and laughed. "You still trying to fix that place? Brother, you'd make more money selling the metal for scrap." Others joined in. "Shoulda listened to the CEO. That garage is cursed. Waste of time." Daniel heard every word. Some comments annoyed him, some stung more than he wanted to admit. There were nights when exhaustion hit so hard that doubt crept in. He would sit alone on an overturned toolbox, staring at the broken walls, asking himself the question everyone else already had. What if they're right? But every time that thought surfaced, another memory followed. His father, hands covered in engine grease, patiently rebuilding parts everyone called useless. "People quit too early," his father used to say. "Most things break twice. First in reality, then in your mind. Never let the second one happen." Daniel held on to those words. So he kept going. One repaired leak became a dry roof section. One cleaned corner became usable workspace. One restored tool became functional again. Progress was painfully slow, almost invisible. But Daniel understood something most people didn't. Empires rarely begin with grand openings. Sometimes they begin in silence, with tired hands, stubborn faith, and the refusal to quit. By the 4th month, the garage no longer looked abandoned. It still wasn't impressive. Not yet. The walls were patched, the leaks had mostly stopped, and the workspace had finally become clean enough for serious repairs. Daniel had painted the front shutter himself, using leftover industrial paint he bought at a discount. The result wasn't perfect. Brushstrokes were visible in places. But for the first time, the building looked cared for. A small handmade board now hung outside. Harper Auto Works. The sign cost him less than $20 to make. His first customer came on a quiet Tuesday morning. An elderly delivery driver pulled in with a van that rattled like it might fall apart at any second. He stepped out and looked around. "You open?" he asked. Daniel wiped grease from his hands. "Yeah. What's wrong with it?" "Engine noise. 2 other shops told me repairs would cost more than the van." Daniel spent nearly an hour inspecting it. The problem turned out to be smaller than expected, a failing belt assembly and a few neglected components. Expensive at big repair shops, manageable here. He gave the driver an honest quote. The man frowned. "That's much lower than I expected." Daniel shrugged. "You need your van to work. I'm charging for what actually needs fixing." The driver studied him for a second, almost suspicious. Then he smiled. That repair changed everything. A week later, the same driver returned, with 2 referrals. Then those customers told others. Within weeks, more vehicles started arriving. Daniel noticed something interesting. People weren't only returning because of low prices. They came back because he explained every repair clearly, never exaggerated problems, and never charged for unnecessary work. Trust spread faster than advertising. By the 6th month, the once empty garage had become busy from morning until evening. Cars lined up outside. Phones kept ringing. And one rainy afternoon, a black luxury car stopped in front of the garage. Daniel looked up from under a lifted truck. He recognized the man stepping out immediately. Victor Langston, the CEO who had once called this place junk. This time, Victor wasn't smiling. He simply stood there, staring at the crowded garage, as if trying to understand how something he dismissed had become impossible to ignore. Victor stood silently near the entrance, rain dripping from his coat as mechanics moved around him. The garage buzzed with life, engines humming, tools clanking, customers talking. 6 months ago, this place had been a dead shell. Now it felt alive. Daniel stepped out from under the truck he was repairing and wiped his hands with an old cloth. For a moment, neither man spoke. Victor slowly looked around again. "I almost didn't believe it when people told me," he said at last. "They said the old garage I sold for scrap value was now booked for weeks." Daniel gave a small smile. "People talk." Victor exhaled, still absorbing the scene. "I don't understand. I had inspectors look at this place. They all said it wasn't worth investing in." Daniel leaned against the workbench. "Maybe they were right." Victor frowned. "Then how did you do this?" Daniel looked around at the garage. The repaired lifts, organized tools, waiting customers, and the team of 3 mechanics he had recently hired. "It wasn't the building," he said. "It never was." Victor stayed quiet. Daniel continued. "You saw a broken garage and calculated its market value. I saw an opportunity and asked what it could become." The words landed harder than Daniel intended. For the first time, Victor looked less like a powerful CEO and more like a man confronting something uncomfortable. He had spent his life evaluating assets, businesses, and investments. He trusted numbers, projections, and expert reports. But none of those had measured determination. None had measured vision. After a long silence, Victor gave a small laugh, this time without arrogance. "I misjudged you." Daniel shook his head. "No, you misjudged the possibility." Before leaving, Victor turned back. "You know," he said, "most people would have sold this after turning a quick profit." Daniel glanced at the garage and smiled. "I wasn't building for quick profit." He looked at the customers waiting outside. "I was building something that lasts." As Victor drove away, Daniel returned to work with grease on his hands and peace in his heart. He understood something success had taught him. The world often rewards people who see value where others see failure. And sometimes the greatest empire begins where everyone else sees junk.